people to your church. I did know a fellow in the western part of the state that when he was asked that question one time, and it was pertaining to a revival that he had gone somewhere to preach, and somebody said to him, "How'd that revival go?" And he said, "It was a great revival. We ran off 7 or 8 troublemakers." Well, I hope we're more in the business of attracting people than running them off. But we do measure, perhaps not always rightly so, but we do measure our success as attracting new folks into the walls of our congregation. And because of that, we are oftentimes tempted to go about that task, perhaps not in the best way. We grandstand, or we try to shape the gospel message somehow or another to make it more attractive to people, or we use sometimes means that we should not use to bring people into the meeting house. Gardner Taylor was an African-American preacher in Brooklyn, New York. He's deceased now, but he was well known as a pulpiteer and a great proclaimer of the gospel. And one time he was asked by Christianity Today, the magazine, to give an account how Revelation might have been written if it was directed by an inner city pastor to an inner city congregation. And he didn't pull any punches. And he said about this, he wrote about those who would exploit the poor under the guise of religion. There are shysters, shills, and confident people posing as ministers of religion, glutting the television screens with their bizarre clothing, their vulgar jewelry, their preoccupation with sexual innuendos, their sleazy sales pitches, all designed to prey on the poor, gullible people. They are the counterparts in the inner city of those virgins of hatred in the majority community who cloak their racism in a shabby piosity and fake emotions. All are reincarnations of Simon the sorcerer, who saw religions as a tool by which to dupe the poor and the susceptible. There's always this temptation to grandstand or somehow make the gospel other than what it actually is. And let me just suggest that if we use those kind of methodology in our missions or our church work, our outreach, we might attract some people out of curiosity, and they may gather about us, but week in and week out, as they go through the religious experience, they would find what we do most of the time rather flat and unappealing. And I'm not suggesting that worship is that. Worship ought to be praise and thanksgiving, giving glory to God, and not simply trying each week to outdo the week before with some kind of show or program. And if we go about it in that way, we are simply missing what this worship business is all about. Paul sincerely cared for people, and he loved people, and he wouldn't misuse the people in Thessalonica, even though he was there for a short time. And he wasn't going about misusing them for his own personal financial gain, among other things. And his concern for them comes out in this passage, as he truly cares for them. And that is why he preached a gospel open and simple and to the point, because he cared for people. There's a revealing passage in the 7th chapter of Luke where Jesus is invited into the home of a Pharisee by the name of Simon. And during the course of the gathering, we read that a woman comes to Jesus, and she has quite a reputation. And she simply makes a spectacle of herself in front of Jesus. And Simon the Pharisee is thinking to himself, he said, if this Jesus really was a prophet, he would know what kind of woman this is. But Jesus turns to Simon, and he says to Simon, "Do you see this woman?" And that wasn't a silly question. Of course Simon saw the woman, but Jesus was saying, "Do you see the woman?" Simon saw a sinner. Jesus saw a person who needed redemption. and who needed care. And that's the way that Paul saw the folks at Thessalonica. If you look at Jesus' ministry, he never resorted to any kind of grandstanding or gimmickry. There is in Matthew's Gospel, the Pharisees and the scribes come to Jesus and they want some kind of sign. If you're the Messiah, show us something. You know, Jesus walked on water, turned some water into wine, put on a show. And Jesus told them they would have to be satisfied with his teachings. And then at the end of his ministry, when Jesus was before Pilate, Pilate hears that Herod from Galilee is in town because of the Passover season. And Herod always wanted to see this Jesus. He had been hearing about him, and he wanted to see him do some signs, tricks, miracles, whatever. And so Jesus is passed on to Herod, but Jesus again refuses to play that kind of game. He has a